special education master's degree candidate at Colorado Christian University. This is my special education 548 student eligibility assessment presentation. I chose the Woodcock-Johnson 4 test because at my facility, school, where we deal with highly severe needs affective students, we need to cover a broad base of criteria as far as cognitive disorders and processing disorders. So this presentation will cover proper protocol, the different subtest selections and reasons why we do choose and don't choose ones over the next, when this particular assessment is chosen and why, the importance of proper interpretation of data as far as from a teacher perspective, a therapist perspective, a residential facilities manager's perspective, and a psychiatrist's perspective will go into detail. The importance of the appropriate administration of the Woodcock-Johnson as far as testing area, making sure that the student is properly vented and properly prepared and is given a chance to, in a nice, calm environment, to take the test. Protocol and subtest. Proper protocol is choosing the correct form for age and grade level. This can be tricky in my facility school because though most of my students age from 15 to 18 and have variable degrees of diagnoses, they mostly function in the first to third grade level. So giving a first and third grade level functioning 15, 17-year-old who should be anywhere from a sophomore to a senior in high school to a freshman in college would be problematic and just a waste of time because they wouldn't be able to complete the test. So choosing the proper test for the proper student where their assume is functioning level is paramount. So if you give a test and it's too easy, and then you're able to trial and error and work your way up. Awareness of the student's cognitive levels is a must, as I just stated. There are multiple assessment formats, which we'll go into detail later. The subtest selection, as we get more into detail of each test, not just the kinds of tests, gives us a broad outline of the student's cognitive ability. So we're able to ascertain deficiencies. Where's the processing breakdown? Is it into integration or is it to application? Protocol and test and subtest. I went ahead and covered all the different kinds of Woodcock-Johnsons that you can get. But broadly speaking, Woodcock-Johnsons are known for covering reading, word identification, reading fluency, comprehension, moving on into subtest contents like mathematics, calculation, computation, mathematical fluency, along with mathematical reasoning and application. The tests also move on into grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and editing, written language, spelling, writing fluency, written expression. Then there's the optional subtest areas such as academic knowledge, survey of science, social studies, and humanities. That is a content area upon which we tend not to spend the money and to buy the more in-depth test. And I'll go into more into that later. Protocol and subtest. I kept the money and the cost of these tests because cost is paramount. In facility schools, though we do have the idea of Disabilities Act guaranteeing that students get an equal access to services they need, money is always paramount. So the Woodcock-Johnson basic test is something that we use quite a bit because we don't have to pay to have a psychiatrist come in and certify the results. It gives us a nice breakdown for IEP reports and placement of a student. Cognitive abilities testing is a little bit more expensive, as it says here. IQ testing gives insight into a child's learning abilities or aptitude. General intelligence score of IQ is taken about every 3 years where I work. It may differ upon where you work, but generally speaking, facility schools, we don't expect there to be much growth or any growth after the age of 9 due to the levels of severe processing disorders and diagnoses they may or may not have. Other protocol tests and subtest area, not subtest areas, but the different kinds of tests, is achievement and cognitive ability combined. As you can see here, it just works with how well does a child process information, how well do they recall, testing rote memory, what's their attention span, are they able to watch a short video and then recall and bring it on while detecting. This helps us with signs of dyslexia, reading, and so on, in math and handwriting. Diagnostic reading assessments, again, a little more pricey, but the test diagnoses the strengths and weaknesses and the 9 key areas of reading and language. And considering in this day and age where assessment-based calculations and achievement tests are the standard upon which students are in schools are judged, this is paramount to see if we ever want to mainstream a younger student. Because if we can identify dyslexia or any other reading or processing disorder that can be helped through learning strategies and whatnot, we would love to be able to do that. But the Achievement Cognitive Abilities Test combined is probably the most thorough exam that I use. Protocol tests beyond that, the deluxe testing package, again, it's outlined here. You have the Woodcock-Johnson 3 test of achievement, the cognitive abilities, IQ standard survey test, learning styles assessment, which is paramount if you really want to get to know a student. Who I have some higher functioning students who actually have an operative IQ of 90 to 92 range. I want to know their learning styles if you don't pick up on them intuitively. Understanding and having the learning styles resource guide, methods and curriculum suggestions is always good. After 20 years in a special education classroom as a reading therapist and as a language therapist, this is invaluable to me as a teacher. You also gain a 1-hour consultation with an expert, which is if this is going to be key and paramount in placement of a student back into the public school, you'll have to pay extra to make sure you get a professional psychiatrist or professional test evaluator to move this child forward. Learning styles assessment, I kind of went into this. I think learning styles assessments are helpful, especially if you're trying to gain access to special services within your classroom, which I often like to do. I like to push the envelope. So if I can give 2 or 3 of these tests to promote, hey, these children work well with a combined audio-visual score that's really high. So they need access more to audio and visual aspects of content. And sometimes that can be a little bit pricey. So if I want to have a child have a microphone so they can record their compositions and then type them down or pair them with audio-visual cues to make short movies or whatnot, this is really important. The learning styles consultation, this again, like I said earlier, if you pay extra, you get a consultation. And this consultation includes a Woodcock-Johnson professional, usually a psychologist, school psychologist, or a learning psychologist. They give you in-depth information about teaching strategies used with this specific child. And no matter how long you've known a child, it's always good to keep an open mind to listen to different people's observations, especially people who have been in the field. You can dismiss any information that you feel is free, but it's always good to document anything that you get from these consultations. Educational consultation, same thing as the conclusion of your child's testing. Woodcock-Johnson can go over the scores with you. This is including in the testing fee if you pay top dollar. However, they do offer in-depth follow-up consultations done a week or so after the student's test. And that works out fine with us, but usually we don't go this route. We have our own staff of facility professionals who go over this, but to get specific suggestions from a third party is always helpful. So when choosing this Woodcock-Johnson, when this particular assessment is chosen, well, you should ask, what is the purpose? What are you trying to identify? You're trying to find out learning styles, basic IQ scores. So you should understand which Woodcock-Johnson you want to get. And again, is the purpose to determine grade level? Because oftentimes grade level at facility school where I work, where kids are severely hampered by learning disabilities, severe trauma, gaps in education, cognitive disorders across the spectrum. So it's always good to understand what you're testing for, so you don't just take an IQ score and say, yeah, we knew his IQ was 68 to 72 range. But it's also good to say, well, where is the breakdown? What's going on? Is he not able to transfer audio data? Is he able to need a combined audio-visual stimulus, whatever that is? Is the purpose to identify strengths and weaknesses? That's what I like to use the Woodcock-Johnson for. What are the strengths and weaknesses of my students? Have I overlooked something they do well because I've become dogmatic in my approach to teaching that student or just teaching the whole classroom? Is the purpose of academic or therapeutic? I often am a big advocate for the therapeutic angle of the Woodcock-Johnson and of special education in general. Oftentimes academics, in my opinion, take a back seat to the therapeutic angle. You have to leave these kids emotionally open and confident to engage in the world. Oftentimes, special education students, especially in my population, they're going to have to learn to operate the adult world on a first, second, third grade education and level of understanding. So the therapeutic angle and them understanding their weaknesses and their strengths is paramount. And having a cognitive test such as Woodcock-Johnson to give you support to promote the student's viability or candidacy for employment is fantastic. Is the purpose to identify processing and cognitive disorders, impairing the student's achievement? That's paramount, especially when you have younger students. But oftentimes I do end up with students who really have never had comprehensive cognitive testing. And this late in the game, it's always interesting to see, did they miss something? And oftentimes they didn't miss anything. Oftentimes a lot of things that have hampered them, yeah, we already have identified their process and cognitive disorder, but it's been mostly emotional, environmental. And once you settle them down, you are able to see that they can achieve. The purpose of assessment in general is to promote a student learning and development. Assessment methods and ways of gathering information of the student learning are realistic, manageable, and meaningful within the culture of the particular academic program, the department, or school. And I never forget that I work at a facility school for severe needs affective students. Um, and learning development has everything to do with their social IQ as much as their academic IQ. It's understood, as I already said, that their academic IQs are going to be severely diminished due to long years of trauma, homelessness, abuse, neglect. So the therapeutic angle and the emotional angle is paramount. And that's what's fantastic about the Woodcock-Johnson. It's able to give you manageable and meaningful data within that culture of that particular student. Proper interpretation of the data, which I've been kind of going into detail about. What are you truly measuring? Are you measuring an IQ that has been established for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe even 10 years for a student? Oftentimes, some of my students' data has not improved, and sometimes it actually worsens. So an IQ score given back in measuring their potential to learn back in when they were in the second and third grade, or when they were 8 or 9 years old, would score them at like an 82 range. But then as they get older and they get more emotionally burdened and they're not so much engaged into their treatment, those scores can go down. And again, that has nothing to do with academic aptitude, ability to learn, unless they have a diagnosis or disease like cerebral palsy and other issues like that. But if that's the case, then it's good to get the physical testing, and the Woodcock-Johnson and academic cognitive process testing can help us identify those extreme cases. Administration of the test, the importance of appropriate administration is paramount. To have the kid absolutely prepared, have them sitting in their desk, make sure it's quiet and focused, make sure they're well rested and they're in a good space. Because in a facility school, I mean, if in general education classroom, if children are not emotionally open to learning or engaging, they are not going to perform and they're not going to learn. They may go through the motions, but they may not learn. But at facility school, they'll often just shut down and refuse. So it's important not to waste people's time or money in interpreting this test. So that's fantastic. The administration of the test, again, we went into it. This is some formal language given by the Woodcock-Johnson themselves and whatnot. I think the most important aspect of this is when working with subjects who have special problems such as immaturity, hyperactivity, lack of motivation, or speech defects. A clear distinction exists between the skills required to administer and as the test is able to evaluate. So what I get from this is the administration of the test, have realistic expectations. If this test has to be administered over a number of days into a week or two, that's what you want to do. You want to get an honest estimation of what the student is capable of. Oftentimes they will shut down if emotionally challenged and intellectually challenged. So we'll move forward. The Woodcock-Johnson subject and categories. Again, I'll go into more detail here. They cover oral language, which is basically a picture of vocabulary and sentence repetition. I like this multimodal aspect of allowing a student to use nonverbal language to communicate and learn, because oftentimes with lower functioning students, they pick up a job by watching people do things and not by reading a manual and in that order. The oral language, listening, comprehension, understanding can be very difficult for some of the low IQ students I work with. So I find the oral language component very, very helpful. Basic reading, like I said, most of these students read about the first, second grade level. So fluency and language speed and having word attack, they usually struggle, but it's fantastic to understand where the breakdown is within their cognitive functioning. The reading comprehension passage, then it goes to math calculations, math problems. And again, their ability within the math section is their ability to draw upon proper structure within mathematics, like just learning their multiplication tables is usually the breakdown and when you go to long division and things of that nature, just long processes with the students I work with. But the Woodcock-Johnson does a fantastic job as giving them a test where they're able to achieve to a certain level before it becomes too difficult in the breakdowns. So that's fantastic. Applied problems and number matrices help them because it provides them with answers. Like they'll give you like 1 times 99, 2 times 99, up to like 10 times 99. And then they'll give you they give you the multiplication scales. And then the student will just have to plug in and do the division where it's like 99 can go into 1,227 how many times and that whatnot. But it's fantastic to see where the breakdowns is and where they give them enough hypodermic promotion to help to complete the exam. Woodcock-Johnson scoring scale. I like it because it's deviational. I mean, you can give yourself what is the average second to third grader, even if the student is 15, depending on what test you're getting. But a score of 131 and above is considered very superior, down to a score of 69 below. To the 1 to 2